Welcome to Roadmap 2019, where we interact with some of the nation's top players in its journey to the 2019 elections. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Thanks for your time. On today's edition of the program, my guest says there is a need to follow through on the processes and promises of the Niger Delta Amnesty Program, first introduced by the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. My guest also says a review of the National Revenue Allocation Formula, as well as local government autonomy, are desirable to deepen the nation's democracy. Now, please join us as we talk to the governor of Nigeria's South-South state of Delta, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Roadmap 2019.
Thanks for having me on your program.
There's so much, and I guess maybe we should start from more current events. What have you made of the political developments since this election season started last year? Is it different from 2015? If so, is it better or is it worse?
Well, I believe there's a lot of apprehension on the part of both politicians and even the electorate. People are getting very worried about what the outcome of the 2019 elections will be. As Nigerians, I think we expect a much better process, but that is still an expectation. And as we move towards the last days before the elections, people are campaigning, but people are very worried first about the security situation in the country. We've had some skirmishes during the course of electionary campaigns, and that also is something that Nigerians are getting too worried about. People are still worried as to what the role of INEC will be. We expect that INEC should perform much better than the previous elections. We do not have any cause to doubt them immediately yet, but every Nigerian is expectant of the fact that INEC should do better. It's expected that we should improve on a yearly basis, and I think that there's a lot of expectation from INEC. It is my hope and prayer that they will live up to that expectation. I believe too that the recent action taken regarding the leadership of the Nigerian police is something that's gone on to encourage Nigerians, because people are definitely getting worried about the attitude of the IG who just retired, because the great suspicion was that he was becoming partisan, and that is not expected of the role of somebody who occupies that office. And for the elections itself, both the campaigns and the elections proper, the police are actually the security agencies, along with the Department of State Services, that actually will interface with the closely with the electionary process, and to a very large extent, if they are going to provide the needed security and have an interface with both the voting electorate and the INEC officials, they need to stay neutral. They need actually to take instructions from INEC and not just be able to work on their own as if they are participants in the electoral process. They're actually not participants in the electoral process. They're supposed to provide security and take instructions and be regulated to a large extent by the guidelines of INEC.
Now, do you think the number of political parties this time, I mean, in 2015, we didn't have up to 1/5 of the number of parties we have now. We have 91 in total at this point, of which about 70 plus are participating in the elections. So do you think that introduces a better dynamic or a worse dynamic, especially in view of some of the things you've already pointed out, the role of the police, security challenges, even the mere logistics involved, the role of INEC, for example?
Well, actually, having several political parties is a democratic process, but it puts a lot of pressure on INEC. Definitely, I don't know, they may not have complained, but I know that it puts a lot of pressure on them because you're now dealing with many more party agents. You are now dealing with complaints from many more persons. And with the number of participating parties too, there is no doubt that starting from the polling units through to the world coalition centers and local government, and even the state and national coalition center, you're now going to be dealing with a lot more people. That in itself is a pressure on its own. And then the fact that Nigerians, I thank God, were literate, but we still have a lot of persons who are not literate. And when you're not going to have a very extensive ballot paper containing over 70 parties, it's going to definitely create some challenge with the electorate who are not actually literate enough. Is obviously going to pose a lot of challenge. And to that extent, they are going to have a more difficult process. But because the whole process is democratic, we cannot fault it. But I think that there is a need for us as a country to be sure that political parties don't just spring up for the fun of it. Because to a very large extent, we're beginning to have a manner of candidates now in the race. So elections are serious businesses, they are serious processes, but I just hope that we are going to have to find a way to look at the electoral process while not being restrictive and taking away the ability of Nigerians to be able to exercise their rights. I think that there has to be some level of regulation to be sure that those who are offering themselves in the electoral process are just good enough to and have some semblance of structure that actually makes them look like a political party, so that we don't have what they call a kind of portfolio political parties.
Now, let me bring you to the politics of the day. I mean, the incidences, the things that are going on. The PDP is in opposition, is contesting an election, being the opposition party for the first time. And it took a while for it to make the transition from being the governing party after 16 years to being in opposition. You played a major role in that, both in the process and then, of course, in the convention that led to the executive and other things that then emanated. Do you think that now in 2019, the lessons, because when you get voted out of power, it is for the purpose of learning some lessons. Do you think the party has learned those lessons after these 4 years and is ready to take back the reins of power?
A lot of lessons have been learned, obviously. You recall that as you did say, trying to transit from being a ruling party to an opposition party could be difficult. And 2 years down the line, we had our challenges. All manner of things were going on, people trying to disturb the stability of the party. But eventually, we were able to get it right after the initial court processes. And we started the process of genuine reforms. And genuine reforms is first to ensure that you are able to establish a system in which the internal democracy is not questionable. Because if every political party is able to ensure that there's internal democracy and the best in her actually emerge as candidates, you find that beyond creating stability in the party, you're also ensuring a peaceful process in the course of electioneering and elections. And I do believe that if the parties begin to throw in their best, like the PDP is now throwing up its best, you will not be looking at a situation where you want to begin to rig elections because you are confident that you've chosen your best for the purpose of the race. You saw that what did happen after some time, the PDP, was that impunity came in and godfatherism came in, and a lot of persons were just anointed as candidates. And when such happens, you begin to do all that is necessary to be able to get the person to win the eventual elections conducted by INEC. But we have gone through a series of reforms, and you saw that in our national convention to elect our party officers, it was transparent as much as we could humanly do. And the convention in Port Harcourt was such that just no person could fault anything in the process. It was glaring to every participant that there was no favoritism and everybody had an equal playing ground. And that's why you now found that at the end of the convention, every other aspirant bought into the process, and we're now all working in partnership. That is a major reform, and that is the real reform that we need in the party. Other reforms include looking at the past, other processes of running the party beyond the elections, the other processes which we've been able to put in place, and that's a party administration. It's been streamlined because at some point in time we have to set up a committee to look at the things we've done wrong and what we ought to do right. And going through that too, the candidates that have emerged from the party know that, yes, the party administration is rigid, and the reform is such that you must believe in what the PDP is trying to profess, a new PDP in which we cannot act with brazen disregard of normal rules of the party. And even in governance, by God's grace, when we come into government, we expect that discipline, that integrity level that we've reintroduced into the party will become, and then the drive to be committed to the process and to be committed to the Nigerian nation is very key in party governance. So a lot of lessons have been learned, and I think it's good for democracy, and we believe that PDP is set and ready for the elections.
Now, there are many people who hear you and who are listening to you who will be making the argument that, yes, from the narrative you've given, it appears as if, yes, things are progressing in the right direction. But they also point out, and I have you here, so I ask you to either clarify this or confirm if indeed it is true, that some of the key players are not participating in the election campaigning for the party's candidate. In particular, people mentioned the South-South governors, that you're not participating in the campaigning for the candidate, and that may be as a result of some level of intrigue even within the campaign of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. I mean,
I think that's a wrong assumption for people who do assume that. I think what people are anticipating to see is that when there is a national campaign, probably the presidential candidate is in Sokoto or he's in Kwara, they expect to see all the governors move to that place. That's a wrong way to campaign. Our individual strengths are in our individual states. So what we need to do is to carry on the campaign to the grassroots and not looking onto the national fanfare of campaigns. Every state has its leadership who are able to mobilize their people for the purpose of the elections. So if I stand to spend several days outside Delta State, for instance, then I'm not doing a service to the party. If the governor of Rivers State or governor of Akwa Ibom or the governor of Cross Rivers or Bayelsa spends all his time outside on the general he's not able to make a strong impact in such states because at the best he will have a few friends. But if he spends enough time campaigning in the various upland areas and creeks of the Niger Delta, he's likely going to make a stronger impact for the party. That is also genuinely part of the reforms that we're undertaking. So people are beginning to read it differently, because what did happen in the 2014-2015 process is that I saw all governors go, everybody was trooping, so many private jets coming in to a state. That is unfair. That does not give the results. So we must look at the things that will give us results, and that's exactly what is going on. I'm not aware of any South governor that has any issues at all. And I'm very much aware that they are all doing grassroots campaigns in their various local government
Now, one of the
areas.
things that the now ruling party, then opposition party, has sought to tender as the narrative against the PDP is this issue of corruption. Now, my question to you on it will be two-pronged. The first is, are they correct to say that there are corrupt elements within the PDP? The second will be to say that the general fight that is going on against corruption, if you want to call it that, or war against corruption, whichever phrase you want to use, is it being fought in a way that can achieve the objective of rooting out corruption in the country?
I believe that in the first instance, as a country, a genuine fight against corruption would require a sit-down of all, both the ruling party, the opposition parties, all other stakeholders in the Nigerian nation, where we sit down and agree what best way to fight corruption. The current corruption, fight against corruption, yes, the federal government is doing the much they can, but there is still a lot of question mark, and it's important that we address some of these issues. In the fight against corruption, it should know no face. So that means everybody will need to be anybody could actually be taken in at any point in time. But there is, if you ask Nigerians, they are beginning to see the corruption fight as principally being targeted at those that are perceived to be in the opposition parties. And this is not good enough. Because once that mindset is made up by most Nigerians, whatever the presidency is doing will not be seen to have achieved any form of results. Why do I say so? Because there are some persons who are well known to have done things that are wrong in the past. Issues have been raised concerning them. But because they belong to the ruling party, actions are not being taken. And then you can see those who are coming from the opposition, they are in such a manner that they are being critically followed up, and then their cases are being, there's a speed up of the investigations and their trials. It should be seen to be the same with every person, no matter where you're from. And even those outside the political class, there are so many other persons who are corrupt. So we must fight this holistically. It should not be restricted to whatever party you belong to. That should not be something that will be a guiding principle. How do we make elections much less expensive? Of course, they're spending of money, but much less expensive than it is. And then secondly, the fact that the economic power of the Nigerian is not the product of today. It's been a long time product, but the economic power of a lot of Nigerians is low. And then the literacy level, though getting generally better over the several years, is still such that a lot of persons do not even understand the importance of their vote or the importance of the elections. So these are all issues that we must look at, because if they are better educated, they are more likely to even make contributions and to make decisions, make contributions to candidates of their choice and to also make decisions. And then thereafter, after they, assumably now, when the legislator is elected and he comes into power, and he comes from probably from Abuja, people hover all around him. What is the constituents? What are they looking for? The question, oh, I need money for school fees. I need money for my child who is in hospital. I need money for my husband who is in hospital. I need some assistance to be able to help me to establish a business. And when you look at the totality of this, it's because of the state of the economy and the poverty of the people. So what do you do? But overseas, when people when they come in, they are coming for more serious businesses, not the way we're going through. So there are obvious challenges, and we need to look at the entire structure. That's why I believe that there is a need to have a stakeholders debate on what is the best way forward, so that we don't keep on fighting corruption at the top without looking at the root causes of what is taking us to that level. And until we begin to look at it from the bottom and begin to find solutions to those challenges that drive the process of corruption and governance, we're likely going to keep on chasing shadows. We're likely going to keep on fighting without being able to achieve real results. And I think the battle against corruption is something that it's a long distance, like can be compared to a long distance race. It's something that you must watch. These are the various steps you need to take. And then, yes, you may have to do the quick wins like what we're doing now. But no matter the quick wins, if you do not address the bottom line, then there's this problem. It's like a doctor who you're having fever, the cause you've not looked at it, you just keep on giving Panadol. I give you Panadol today, you're relieved. But tomorrow, because the underlying sickness has not been addressed, it could be malaria, it could be typhoid, it could be some other things, it just keeps on recurring. And I think that there is a need to look at it holistically.
Now, in that sense, then let me also drill down a bit on that and say that the South-South governors met. There was an emergency meeting. The South-South governors met when the whole issue of the Chief Justice and his alleged non-declaration of assets came up, and the whole issue of being tried before the Court of Doctrinal Tribunal. And the South-South Governors Forum said he shouldn't go. He shouldn't appear. That appeared to be a politicization of what essentially is a legal issue. Do you think so?
The South-South governors took that decision because the man in question is from the South-South. And then, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that from recent judicial pronouncements, anything involving officers of that caliber or officers within the judiciary is supposed to first be tried by the NJC before further processes of prosecution, other things are done. This process was not followed through, and there are court decisions on that, but that appears to be ignored. So that is where the South, that the real process need be followed before you get to the issue of charging somebody to court. We don't want to create a situation where we begin to look at, we don't want people to begin to feel that, because this man is from this part of the country, that's why he's being treated this way. You realize that for several years, no person from the South-South has actually gotten to that position of authority. So obviously, whether it's by sentiments, he's one of our own. That's number one. But two, because we have also been informed as governors that the judicial process is not being followed through the way it ought to be followed through, it's important that we're able to speak out for one of our own. I would say follow the due process if the court pronouncement has said that this is a process that we ought to undertake. And when you follow the due process, then we may not have any reason to cry foul. But we're worried as governors of the South-South, who to some extent, by that position, we can also be a mouthpiece for our people, that we need to speak out, because we want to be definitely certain that whatever action that is being taken is not such that it is to disenfranchise the South-South. I know that the Chief Justice is a national figure, he stands in for all Nigeria, but in the same vein, he is also from somewhere. And if we believe as a people that the process is not being taken into full consideration, we ought to talk. Beyond the governors, other South-South leaders have spoken concerning this.